Night broke open above her like a wound. Rain slammed down in sheets, cold and unforgiving, turning the forest floor into sucking mud that tried to steal her with every step. Lira ran anyway. She ran because stopping meant hands on her again. Stopping meant chains. Stopping meant being dragged back to a life that had already been decided for her without her consent. Her breath tore out of her chest in sharp, burning gasps. Each inhale scraped her throat raw. Her bare feet slipped, skidded, bled. Roots clawed at her ankles. Stones cut her skin. The pain barely registered. Fear drowned everything else. Behind her, wolves howled. Not the wild, distant call of the untamed forest. These were close. Focused. Possessive. They weren't hunting prey. They were reclaiming property. Her torn dress clung to her legs, heavy with rain and blood. White silk once meant for ceremony now hung in shreds, soaked through, the bridal markings painted on her skin smeared and ruined. The symbols had been drawn that morning with solemn hands and cold smiles. Marks of ownership. Marks that said she no longer belonged to herself. Lira had stood still while they painted her, because that was what good daughters did. That was what worthless daughters did. She'd told herself not to cry. She'd told herself this was her fault. That if she had been different, stronger, fertile, useful, this would not be happening. She had been sold. Not in whispers or shadows. Not with shame. Her parents had stood tall and called it necessary. Called it tradition. Called it mercy. A debt had to be paid. And Lyra's body was the currency. Rain stung her eyes as she burst through low branches, leaves slashing her face. Her hair had come loose from its ceremonial braids, dark strands plastered to her cheeks and neck. She tasted iron. Blood. Salt. Her legs screamed for her to stop. Her heart refused. Heat flickered under her skin, sudden and strange. Not fever. Not adrenaline. Something deeper. Something that scared her almost as much as the wolves behind her. She pushed harder. The forest thickened, trees crowding close like witnesses who refused to intervene. Fog rolled low along the ground, curling around her ankles, hiding roots and rocks until she tripped over them. She fell forward with a cry, palms slamming into the mud. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. She rolled onto her side, gasping, rain pooling beneath her cheek. Her body shook uncontrollably, cold and exhaustion finally breaking through the fear. For one terrible moment, she thought about staying down. Letting it end. Letting them take her back so she wouldn't have to keep running. A howl sounded closer than before. No. No, no, no. She scrambled to her knees, hands sinking into the earth as she tried to stand. Pain shot through her ankle. She cried out, biting down on the sound too late. They heard her. Branches snapped behind her. Heavy bodies crashed through undergrowth. She could feel them now, feel their attention like a weight pressing down on her spine. Her stomach clenched, not with pain, but with grief so sharp it almost blinded her. Grief for the girl she had been that morning. The girl who still believed her parents loved her. The girl who still thought being obedient might someday earn her a place. She clutched her stomach as if holding herself together, fingers digging into trembling flesh. I tried, she whispered, voice torn apart by the rain. The words barely existed outside her chest. I tried. I tried to be enough. Thunder cracked overhead, violent and sudden, shaking the sky like an answer. Her body betrayed her again. Heat surged, stronger this time, spreading from her core out into her limbs. Her skin prickled. Her veins burned. She gasped, startled, glancing down at her hands. For a split second, just one, she thought she saw silver light flicker beneath her skin. Like sparks chasing her pulse. She squeezed her eyes shut. I'm imagining things. I'm breaking. She forced herself upright and limped forward, favoring her injured ankle. Every step sent pain screaming up her leg, but she kept moving, breath coming in ragged sobs. The forest opened abruptly ahead of her, trees thinning as the ground sloped downward. She skidded to a stop. A ravine yawned before her, wide and deep, its edges slick with rain. Far below, water roared unseen, furious and hungry. There was nowhere left to run. She turned slowly, chest heaving, rain dripping from her lashes. The wolves emerged from the trees one by one, shapes shifting in the darkness. Massive bodies, fur slick with rain, eyes glowing with a cold, unnatural focus. Property. That was all she was to them. One wolf stepped forward, larger than the rest, scars cutting pale lines through dark fur. Authority rolled off him in waves. He shifted partially, bones cracking, body stretching until he stood half man, half beast. His mouth curled into something like a smile. Lira, he called, voice rough and certain. You shouldn't have run. Her name sounded wrong in his mouth. Her back hit empty air as she took an unconscious step away from him. The ravine waited behind her, patient and deadly. I won't go back, she said, though her voice shook. You can't make me. The wolf laughed, low and humorless. You belong to Alpha Reth now. Your parents agreed. The bond was sealed. Her chest tightened at the mention of her parents. She wondered, dimly, if they were sleeping peacefully right now. If they were relieved. If they told themselves this was kindness. I don't belong to anyone, she said. She wanted to believe it. The wolf lunged. Time did something strange. The world stretched, slowed, as if caught in thick honey. Rain froze mid-fall, droplets suspended around her like glass. The wolf's massive form hung in the air, jaws open, teeth bared inches from her throat. Lira screamed, not out loud, but inside. Something broke open in her chest. Fear, grief, rage, all colliding at once. Her palm slammed into the ground. The earth answered. A crack split the ground beneath her hand, sharp and bright, racing outward in a jagged line. The soil buckled. Stones leapt. The force threw the wolf sideways with a roar of surprise. Time snapped back into place. Rain resumed its violent fall. The wolf crashed into a tree, snapping it in half. The others skidded to a halt, confused snarls ripping from their throats. Lira stared at her hand. It trembled violently, skin flushed and steaming faintly in the cold rain. Silver light pulsed once beneath the surface, then vanished. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might tear free. What did I just do? The wolves hesitated now, uncertainty rippling through them. They hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected this, The world felt tilted, wrong, as if she had stepped off a path she never knew existed. The scarred wolf recovered first, shaking his head, fury burning in his eyes. "Witch," he snarled. "Freak." The word hit harder than any blow. That was what they'd always called her, when they thought she couldn't hear. When she failed to shift properly. When her heat cycles passed without result. Freak. Broken. Useless. Something inside her twisted. She took another step back. Her heel slipped on wet stone. For a heartbeat, she teetered on the edge, arms flailing uselessly. The ravine yawned behind her, dark and endless. The roar of the river rose up to meet her, eager. The wolves surged forward as one. Lira's mind went strangely calm. If she fell, she would be free. If she fell, no one would own her again. But a different fear rose up then, quieter and deeper. Not fear of death. Fear that if she fell now, she would never understand what had just awakened inside her. Fear that she would die believing she was nothing more than what they had told her she was. Her fingers curled into fists. Heat flared again, brighter, stronger. It didn't hurt. It felt right. Like something long asleep stretching awake. The rain hissed softly as it hit her skin, steam curling upward. The wolves faltered, skidding to a halt, hackles rising. Lira didn't know how to control it. She didn't know what she was doing. She only knew she was done begging. Done trying to be enough. The forest held its breath. And somewhere, far beyond the storm, something ancient stirred, aware, at last, that she was running. If you love dark romance, fated mates, and heroines forged in pain, subscribe to Moonbound Werewolf Romance Stories. Because here, the rejected don't stay broken. Silence fell so suddenly it felt violent. Not the gentle quiet after a storm passes, but a heavy, unnatural stillness that pressed against the ears and made the rain itself seem to hesitate. The wolves froze mid-step. Their snarls died in their throats. Even the forest seemed to recoil, branches bowing, leaves shuddering as if something far greater had just stepped into its domain. Lira felt it before she saw it. The heat under her skin flared, sharp, alert, alive. Her breath caught painfully in her chest, lungs locking as instinct screamed at her to run even though there was nowhere left to go. The ravine yawned behind her. The wolves stood before her. And something else, something vast and unknowable, had entered the space between. The rain parted. Not stopped, parted. A massive black wolf stepped forward from the curtain of storm, his form so large it seemed to bend the darkness around him. Rain slid off his fur without soaking in, rolling away, as if repelled by an unseen force. His eyes glowed a deep, ancient gold, steady and unblinking, holding centuries of authority in their gaze. He did not snarl. He did not rush. He simply stood there, presence filling the clearing like a held breath, like the moment before a verdict is passed. The other wolves lowered their heads without realizing they were doing it. The scarred wolf, the one who had called her freak, took an involuntary step back. His lips peeled away from his teeth, not in challenge now, but in fear. Lira's knees weakened. She didn't know why her body reacted this way. She didn't know why her pulse suddenly roared in her ears, why the strange heat inside her shifted into something sharp and electric, like recognition trying to claw its way to the surface. The black wolf's gaze moved to her. The moment his eyes found her face, the world tilted. It wasn't attraction. Not yet. It was something deeper, and far more dangerous. A sense of being seen, not as prey, not as property, not as a failure, but as something that mattered. As something that had weight. He took a single step closer. The ground responded, subtle but unmistakable. Stones trembled. Water rippled at the edge of the ravine. Then, slowly, deliberately, the wolf began to change. Bones shifted with a low, controlled sound. His massive frame restructured itself without violence, without haste. Fur melted into skin. Spine straightened. Hands emerged, strong and steady, fingers flexing once, as if grounding himself in this form. When he stood upright, rain slicked down his bare chest, tracing scars earned in battles Lira could not imagine. Her eyes were drawn, helplessly, to the mark at his collarbone. A scar shaped like a crown. Not ink. Not ritual paint. A brand burned into flesh, old and faded, yet unmistakable. The symbol of a high alpha. No. Something more. He lifted his head, rain dripping from dark hair that fell loose around his shoulders. His face was hard in the way mountains were hard, unyielding, shaped by time and pressure. His eyes, still gold, held no warmth. No cruelty either. Just truth. Lira, he said. Her name cut through her like lightning. She hadn't spoken it. Her heart slammed against her ribs, panic flaring anew. Every instinct screamed danger. Not the simple danger of teeth and claws, but the deeper kind. The kind that changed lives. The kind that rearranged the world and never asked permission. How do you know my name? She demanded, though her voice shook. His gaze never wavered. Because you've been running through my lands since sundown. The words didn't sound like an accusation. They sounded like a statement of fact. The scarred wolf found his voice again, though it cracked with forced bravado. This doesn't concern you, he growled. She belongs to Alpha Reth. By law. The man, no, the king, turned his head slowly, eyes shifting from Lira to the wolf who spoke. The air dropped 10 degrees. Law, he repeated quietly. The word carried weight. Judgment. He stepped forward, placing himself fully between Lira and the wolves without touching her, without even glancing back to check that she followed. He simply assumed she would remain where she was. Assumed, somehow, that she was his to shield. Lira didn't move. She couldn't. Her body felt torn between terror and a strange, dangerous pull toward his presence. Her pulse stuttered, then steadied, as if sinking to something older and stronger than her own fear. You crossed a border you were not invited to cross, he said, voice calm, deadly. You hunted without permission. The scarred wolf bared his teeth. She's nothing to you. That was when the man looked back at her. Really looked. His gaze swept over her torn dress, the blood on her feet, the smeared markings on her skin. His jaw tightened, not in anger, but in something colder. More controlled. Calculation. You're wrong, he said at last, still watching her. She is not nothing. Lira swallowed hard. She hated the way her chest ached at the words. Hated that part of her wanted to believe him. The man's eyes returned to the wolves. Leave? The command was simple. Final. The scarred wolf hesitated. Alpha Reth will. The man moved. It happened too fast for Lira to follow. One moment he stood still, rain dripping down his shoulders. The next, he was a blow of motion and violence. He didn't fully shift. He didn't need to. Power exploded outward as he lunged, hand transforming mid-strike, claws flashing gold in the stormlight. He caught the nearest wolf by the throat and slammed him into the ground with bone-shattering force. The earth cracked. The wolf didn't even have time to scream. The man straightened, chest heaving once, rain washing blood from his hands. The body lay still at his feet, eyes already glassy. The forest held its breath again. He turned to the others, eyes blazing now, no longer calm. Go, he said. The remaining wolves backed away, fear naked on their faces. All except the scarred one, who stared at the body on the ground, horror warring with rage. The man's gaze locked onto him. He did not advance. He did not threaten. He simply spoke. Tell Alpha Reth, he said, voice carrying effortlessly over the rain, that the girl he bought is under my protection now. The scarred wolf's throat bobbed. And who are you, he demanded hoarsely, to claim that right? The man smiled then. It was not kind. Kale Draven, he said. Alpha King of the Northern Dominions. The words fell like a death sentence. The scarred wolf's eyes widened. His head dipped low in instinctive submission before he could stop himself. He backed away, step by step, never turning his back until the forest swallowed him and the others whole. Then they were gone. The storm crept back in, rain resuming its relentless fall. The forest exhaled. Lira stood frozen, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Her legs finally gave out, and she sank to her knees at the edge of the ravine, mud soaking into her skin. She was alone with him now. That terrified her more than the wolves ever had. Kale Draven did not move toward her. He stayed where he was, a respectful distance away, as if he understood that one wrong step might send her over the edge. You're safe, he said. The words felt strange in the air, heavy with disbelief. She laughed weakly, the sound cracking. You killed someone. Yes. You didn't hesitate. No. That should have comforted her. It didn't. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering now that the adrenaline had begun to fade. Why? She asked. Why help me? His eyes searched her face, something unreadable passing through them. Because, he said slowly, your scent doesn't belong to the man who bought you. Her breath caught sharply. That's impossible, she whispered. The bond was sealed. Paper and blood, Kale replied. Not fate. She flinched at the word. Fate had never been kind to her. She forced herself to look at him, really look. Up close, his power was overwhelming, pressing against her senses like deep water. But beneath it, there was restraint. Control. And something else she couldn't name. You shouldn't be here, she said. I bring trouble. His mouth twitched. So do I. The rain softened to a drizzle. Fog curled between them, thick and silver, blurring the edges of the world. Lira became acutely aware of how close he was now, though he hadn't moved. A few steps. That was all. Too close. Her pulse betrayed her, racing, then stuttering, then settling into a rhythm that felt familiar. As if her body remembered something her mind did not. She hated it. She took a shaky breath. "If you think I'm worth something," she said quietly, "you're wrong." Cale tilted his head slightly, studying her, as if she were a puzzle he had been waiting years to see in person. "Your parents sold you," he said, not unkindly. "Your pack marked you as broken. And still, the earth answered when you struck it." Her fingers curled into the mud. "I don't know what happened." "I do," he said. That frightened her more than anything else he had done. "I'm not taking you anywhere you don't choose to go," Cale continued. "But staying here will get you killed." She glanced back at the ravine, then at the dark forest beyond him. Everywhere felt dangerous now. Everywhere except the space he occupied. That scared her most of all. "Why do I feel like I know you?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Something dark and careful crossed his face. "Because," he said after a pause, "some bonds don't need memory to wake." The fog thickened, curling around their legs, the forest closing in once more. Lira hugged herself tighter, heart torn between instinct and fear, between running again and stepping forward into something she didn't understand. She didn't trust him. She didn't trust herself. But as Cale Draven stood there, rain-soaked and lethal, offering protection without touch or demand, one truth settled deep in her bones. Whatever had awakened inside her tonight had recognized him. And that recognition was about to change everything. They did not speak as they left the ravine. Cale moved first, turning without ceremony, trusting that she would follow or not follow by her own will. He did not look back. He did not reach for her hand. He did not command. That restraint pressed on Lira heavier than chains ever had. She limped after him. Every step sent a sharp reminder up her ankle, but she welcomed the pain. It anchored her to the present. It kept her from thinking too hard about the fact that she was walking beside the Alpha King of the Northern Dominions, through a forest that now seemed to bow out of their way. The storm thinned as they traveled. Rain softened to mist. Thunder retreated into distant echoes. The world felt quieter, not peaceful, but watchful, like something holding its breath. Cale's presence changed the forest. Animals stayed hidden. No insects buzzed. Even the wind moved carefully around him. Lira noticed everything, because when fear loosened its grip, her senses sharpened painfully. She watched him from the corner of her eye. The way he walked, unhurried, precise. The way he listened, to the ground, to the air, to things she couldn't hear. He carried power like a second spine, invisible but undeniable. And yet, there was nothing careless about him. No swagger. No hunger for dominance. That unsettled her. They walked for a long time before her body began to fail her in earnest. The adrenaline drained away, leaving exhaustion heavy and merciless. Her ankle throbbed. Her shoulders sagged. Her breath came shallow and uneven. Cale noticed without her saying a word. He stopped beside a fallen tree and crouched, testing the ground. Only then did he look at her again. "You're hurt," he said. It wasn't a question. "I can walk," she replied quickly. Too quickly. Pride flared, sharp and defensive. She had learned young that weakness invited cruelty. "I know," he said. Sit. The word was firm, but not harsh. She hesitated, then lowered herself onto the log, muscles trembling as she did. The forest felt closer here, branches forming a rough shelter overhead. Fog drifted low, wrapping the space in muted grey. Kale knelt in front of her. Not towering. Not looming. Level. The simple act made her chest tighten. He reached for her ankle slowly, deliberately, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. She told herself it was because she was tired. Because it hurt too much to argue. His hands were warm. Not feverish, steady. Calloused in a way that spoke of work and battle, not idleness. He removed the shredded remains of her shoe and examined the swelling with a healer's eye. You twisted it when you fell, he said. Ligaments are strained, not torn. She swallowed. You sound sure. I am. He tore a strip from the hem of his cloak without hesitation, and wrapped it expertly around her ankle, firm but careful. His fingers brushed her skin only when necessary. Every touch sent a strange shiver through her, heat stirring low in her belly before she could stop it. She hated herself for it. He noticed the tension anyway. I'm not hurting you, he said quietly. I know, she replied, just as quiet. That was the truth, and it scared her more than if he had been rough. When he finished, he leaned back on his heels. You'll heal faster than you think. She laughed softly, bitter. You don't know me. His gaze lifted to hers. I know more than you think. They resumed walking at a slower pace. Kale adjusted his stride without comment, matching her limp so she wouldn't feel rushed. The gesture slipped under her defenses before she could stop it. As the forest thinned into rolling hills, memory began to creep in. It always did when things went quiet. Lira remembered the first time someone called her weak. She had been 6. Too small for her age. Too quiet. She had failed her first shift attempt during a pack gathering, collapsing in the dirt while the other children howled in triumph. The laughter hadn't been cruel at first. Just curious. Then it had hardened. Again, the elders had urged. Try again. She had tried until her throat burned and her muscles shook, until she cried in front of everyone. Nothing happened. No fur. No claws. No wolf. That was the day the word weak became attached to her name. By 10, the whispers followed her everywhere. Children were warned not to pair with her during training. She was always last to be chosen. Always the one left standing alone when the games ended. Her parents told her to ignore it. Your time will come, her mother had said, eyes sliding away. You just have to be patient. But patience didn't change the way elders watched her with narrowed eyes. It didn't change the way healers frowned when they tested her blood. It didn't change the disappointment that settled deeper into her father's shoulders with every passing year. Her first heat came late. Painful. Confusing. She had waited for it like it was a verdict. The others talked about it in whispers, how it felt, how the wolf answered, how everything clicked into place afterward. Nothing clicked for Lira. Her body burned for days, feverish and raw. She lay alone in a back room while the healer came and went, silent and increasingly grim. When it ended, there was no aftermath. No change. No awakening. Just emptiness. The healer's verdict had been delivered in a voice too calm for the damage it caused. Her womb is cold. The words had echoed in her head for years. Cold meant barren. Barren meant useless. She glanced at Cale as they walked, the weight of those memories pressing down on her chest. He moved with such certainty, such contained strength. The Alpha King. A man whose bloodline shaped territories. What was she beside that? A girl sold to clear a debt. She could already imagine the moment he would look at her the way everyone else eventually did, with disappointment edged in pity. She could imagine him realizing she was not worth the trouble she brought. The thought hollowed her out. They reached a shallow cave carved into the hillside just as dusk bled into night again. Cale inspected it briefly, then nodded once. "We'll rest here." She sank down gratefully against the stone wall, exhaustion washing over her in heavy waves. The cave smelled of damp earth and old leaves. Safe, for now. Cale gathered wood with swift efficiency and lit a small fire. The flames cast warm light across the stone, chasing shadows back into corners. Lira hugged her knees, watching the way the fire reflected in his eyes. Silver flickered in her own vision, faint and unsettling. Her mother's voice surfaced unbidden. "If you ever burn, hide it." She swallowed hard. Cale returned with water and offered it to her without comment. She drank slowly, savoring the simple kindness of it. When she handed it back, their fingers brushed. Heat sparked again, sharper this time. She pulled her hand away. Cale noticed. He always noticed. "You don't trust me," he said. "No," she admitted. "I don't." "That's wise." She blinked, thrown by the lack of offense. "You don't seem insulted." "I would be concerned if you trusted me already." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with things unsaid. The fire crackled softly. Outside, night creatures stirred cautiously. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked at last. Cale leaned back against the cave wall, stretching his long legs out toward the fire. "Because you were hunted." "Lots of people are hunted," she said. "Not like that." She frowned. "Like what?" "Like something that scares men who pretend they aren't afraid of anything." Her chest tightened. "I don't want to scare anyone." "I know." That simple acknowledgement loosened something in her. She stared into the flames, watching them twist and reach. For a moment, she imagined them silver instead of gold. The thought made her breath hitch. "There are stories," she said quietly, surprising herself. "Old ones. The elders banned them. Said they caused unrest." Cale's gaze sharpened. "What kind of stories?" "About bloodlines that don't follow the usual rules," she said. "Power that doesn't show up the way it's supposed to." Silver flame. The word felt dangerous on her tongue. Cale didn't interrupt. "They said it was a myth," she continued. "That anyone who claimed to carry it was lying or mad. The stories always ended the same way. With destruction." She glanced at him. "You know them?" "Yes." Her fingers tightened in her sleeves. "Then you know what people think I am." "I know what people fear," Cale said. "That's not the same thing." She laughed softly, humorless. It is when you're the one they fear. The fire popped, sparks leaping upward. One brushed her skin, and instead of pain, warmth bloomed. She stared at the spot, heart pounding. Cale followed her gaze. His jaw tightened, not in disgust. In concentration. Has this happened before? He asked. She shook her head. Not like this. Sometimes I felt warm when I was scared. But I thought I imagined it. You didn't. The certainty in his voice made her chest ache. You're not broken, he said, then paused, as if choosing his next words carefully. But you were shaped to believe you are. Tears stung her eyes. She turned away, ashamed of the weakness. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. To grow up knowing you failed before you even began. To see relief on your parents' faces when someone finally offers to take you away. Her voice cracked. She hated that it did. They called it mercy, she went on. Said selling me was kinder than letting me stay and shame them. Cale's hands clenched slowly into fists. That was not mercy. No, she agreed. But it was easier. The firelight carved shadows across his face, making him look older, heavier. They were afraid of you. She shook her head. They were disappointed. Fear often wears disappointment's mask. She considered that in silence. When she finally looked back at him, she found no pity in his expression. No revulsion. Just a steady, assessing calm. That terrified her. Pity she could endure. Cruelty she understood. This, being looked at like she mattered, left her unarmed. He stood and crossed the small space between them, stopping just close enough that she could feel the heat of him. He crouched again, inspecting the cut on her palm from when she'd struck the ground. You should clean this, he said. I'm fine. He met her gaze. I know. Still. He poured water over her hand, gentle, thorough. His thumb brushed away dirt with practiced care. Every touch was precise, purposeful. He did not rush. He did not linger. She watched him work, heart twisting painfully. No one had ever treated her injuries like this. Not the healers who saw her as a failed vessel. Not her parents, who had learned to look through her instead of at her. When he finished, he wrapped her hand in clean cloth. There, he said. It will scar. She swallowed. I already have plenty. Scars aren't always a loss, Cale replied. Some are anchors. The words settled deep. As the fire burned low and night deepened, exhaustion finally dragged her toward sleep. She shifted carefully, curling against the cave wall. Cale remained awake, a silent presence at the mouth of the cave, watching the darkness. Before sleep claimed her, one last thought pierced through the fog. She believed, with aching certainty, that the moment Cale truly understood what she was, he would leave. And that fear hurt more than anything her parents had ever done. Because for the first time in her life, she didn't want to be alone anymore. Morning did not arrive gently. It crept in slow and grey, fog dragging itself across the hills like something wounded and unwilling to be seen. Lira woke with a sharp intake of breath, her body tense, heart racing as if she had been running even in sleep. For a moment she didn't know where she was. Stone pressed cold against her back. The scent of ash and damp earth filled her lungs. Then she remembered. The ravine. The wolves. The black-eyed king, who had stepped out of the storm. She sat up too fast, wincing as her ankle protested. The cave was quiet. The fire had burned down to embers, glowing faintly like dying stars. Outside, mist curled thick and low, swallowing the world. Cale stood at the cave entrance, motionless. He hadn't slept. She could tell by the way his shoulders were set, by the alert stillness of him. He wasn't guarding the cave from danger so much as listening for something. Waiting. You should have woken me, she said, her voice rough with sleep. I didn't need rest, he replied. That wasn't pride. It was truth. She pushed herself to her feet, testing her ankle. The pain was still there, but dulled now, as if her body had already begun to knit itself back together. That alone unsettled her. Healing had never come easily to her before. Cale noticed her expression. You heal faster near places of old power, he said. And we are closer now. Closer to what? She asked. He looked at her for a long moment, as if measuring how much truth she could carry without breaking. Answers, he said finally. They traveled as the fog thinned, climbing higher until the air grew sharp and thin. The land changed the farther they went. Trees twisted into unfamiliar shapes. Stone broke through the soil in jagged spines. The silence deepened, not empty, but humming faintly beneath the surface. Lira felt it in her bones. The heat inside her stirred again, low and restless, like something recognizing home. Every step forward made her skin prickle, made her breath come a little faster. Fear and anticipation tangled together until she could no longer tell them apart. They crested a final rise. The ashen moon grove lay before them. It was not large, but it was ancient in a way that dwarfed mountains. Stone pillars rose from the earth in a wide circle, their surfaces etched with lunar runes worn smooth by centuries of reverent touch. Ash-colored moss clung to them, pale and soft, glowing faintly in the dim light. The ground within the circle was bare, dark, and perfectly smooth, as if nothing had ever been allowed to grow there. The air hummed. Not audibly, but with pressure. With awareness. Lira stopped at the edge of the grove, her breath catching painfully in her chest. The moment her foot crossed the boundary, the sensation hit her fully, heat rushing up her spine, silver sparks dancing behind her eyes. The grove reacted to her. The runes along the nearest pillar flared, pale light pulsing once like a heartbeat. She stumbled, clutching her chest. Cale caught her elbow instantly, steadying her without pulling her closer. His grip was firm, grounding. It's all right, he said quietly. The grove recognizes you. Her laugh came out thin and panicked. That's not comforting. He didn't disagree. They moved deeper into the circle, each step accompanied by a subtle shift in the air, like invisible eyes tracking her progress. Lira's skin tingled everywhere Cale wasn't touching. Her pulse roared in her ears. The heat inside her climbed higher, sharper, until she had to fight the urge to press her palms against the stone pillars just to release it. At the center of the grove stood an altar. It was carved from a single slab of dark stone, smooth and unbroken, its surface etched with the same lunar symbols, except these were deeper, older, cut by hands that knew exactly what they were doing. Ash lay thick around its base, undisturbed. This place is forbidden, she whispered. Yes, Cale said. That's why it still stands. She took another step. The world shifted. Figures emerged from the fog without sound, their forms solidifying slowly as if the air itself were giving them shape. Elders. 3 of them. Cloaked in pale grey, faces lined not just with age, but with memory. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the same silver light now pulsing beneath Lira's skin. She froze. Kale did not reach for her this time, but his presence flared, power tightening around him like a drawn blade. The elders stepped forward, staff striking the stone once. "Be still," the elder said, voice echoing softly through the grove. "You are not in danger here." Lira's breath came shallow and fast. "You know me." The elder inclined his head. "We have been waiting for you." That single sentence shattered something inside her. Waiting. Not watching. Not fearing. Waiting. Another elder spoke, voice reverent. "Child of the flame womb." The words rang through her, striking something deep and fragile. Her knees buckled. Kale moved instantly, catching her before she fell, his arm solid around her back. "No," she gasped. "That's not me." The unburnt mother, the third elder added, eyes bright with something like awe. Lira shook her head violently. "You're wrong. I can't, I was told." "You were lied to," the elders said gently. "Or worse. You were given truth without understanding." Kale's jaw tightened. "Explain." The elder turned to him, expression shifting, sharpening. "You know the prophecy, Alpha King." Kale's silence was answer enough. Lira looked between them, heart pounding. "What prophecy?" Kale closed his eyes briefly, as if bracing himself. When he opened them again, the conflict there was unmistakable. "It speaks of a bloodline that would not follow the old paths," he said. "A womb that carries fire instead of flesh. A mother who would not bear children as others do, but would birth a new age." Her vision blurred. "That's madness." "Is it?" the elder asked. "Your body does not fail because it is empty. It resists because it is full." The words hit her like a blow. "No," she whispered. "If that were true, someone would have noticed." "They did," the elder replied. "And they were afraid." Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "If you ever burn, hide it." Lira staggered free of Kale's hold and took a step toward the altar, drawn by a force she no longer fought. Her hands trembled as she reached out, fingertips brushing the stone. The moment she touched it, the world exploded. Fire surged up her arms, not consuming, but welcoming. Silver flame roared through her veins, flooding her senses. The grove vanished. She stood in a vast, endless dark, fire curling around her feet like a living thing. Above her, the moon hung enormous and close, cracked through with veins of light. She looked down at herself. She was crowned in fire. Not gold. Not red. Silver. Wolves knelt before her in an unbroken sea, heads bowed, bodies pressed to the ground in submission. Their howls rose together, not in fear, but in reverence. The vision shifted. Cities burned. Stone crumbled. Towers fell. Fire swept through streets, not wild, but purposeful, reshaping the world into something raw and new. Lira screamed. She tore her hands away from the altar and collapsed to the ground, sobbing violently as the vision shattered. The heat ripped through her, uncontrolled now, silver sparks arcing across her skin. "I can't," she cried. "I can't even give life. Why would fate choose me?" Her body curled inward, arms wrapping around herself, as if she could contain the power by sheer will. The ground beneath her warmed. Ash smoked. Cale was at her side in an instant, dropping to his knees, gripping her shoulders. "Lira," he said sharply. "Look at me." She did, tears streaming down her face, terror raw and unfiltered. "I never wanted this," she choked. "I never asked to be different. I just wanted to belong." His grip tightened, grounding her, anchoring her to the present. "You do belong." "Where?" she demanded. "To a prophecy that says I'll destroy everything." The elders watched in solemn silence. "The prophecy is not a sentence," the eldest said. "It is a warning. Power without choice becomes ruin. Power with will becomes legacy." Cale's voice was low, strained. "I knew this story. I studied it. I prepared for it." She laughed hysterically through tears. "Prepared for what?" "Me?" He didn't answer immediately. When he did, the truth in his voice cut deep. "I prepared for a weapon. I did not expect a woman who had been broken by lies. That honesty hurt more than cruelty ever could." "I won't be your weapon," she said hoarsely. Cale shook his head once. "I don't want you to be." She searched his face desperately, looking for deception, for fear, for regret. She found all three. And something else beneath them. Resolve. The grove hummed louder, responding to the shift in her. The runes flared again, brighter this time, as if urging her forward. Lira drew in a shaking breath, and forced herself to her feet. Her legs trembled, but she stood. "I don't know what I am," she said. "And I don't know what I'll become." Cale rose with her, standing close now, no longer holding back. "Neither do I." Their gazes locked, the air between them thick with power and unspoken truth. Whatever this was, prophecy, destiny, curse, it had wrapped them both into its path. The elders bowed. The grove answered. And somewhere deep beneath the earth, something ancient and patient stirred, fully awake at last, aware that the child of the flame womb had stepped into her fate. And nothing, no lie, no fear, no crown, would ever put her back to sleep again. The first howl cut through the grove like a blade. It wasn't the wild call of the forest. It was sharp, commanding, deliberate. A challenge thrown with full knowledge of where it would land. Lira felt it hit her chest before she heard it properly, a violent vibration that rattled her ribs and made the silver heat inside her flare in alarm. The runes along the stone pillars pulsed once, then again, light flickering erratically, as if the grove itself sensed the intrusion. Cale turned instantly, body angling in front of her without conscious thought. "They are here," he said. The elders stiffened. The eldest struck his staff against the stone, the sound ringing hollow and ominous. "Too soon," he murmured. "They should not have found this place yet." Fog tore apart at the edges of the grove as bodies emerged from the forest. Wolves first, dozens of them, then men as they shifted mid-stride, forms cracking and reforming with practiced ease. Power rolled off them in waves, aggressive and territorial, clashing violently with the ancient calm of the grove. Rival alphas. They came from every direction, boots striking stone, cloaks snapping in the charged air. Their scents collided, iron, smoke, blood, ambition. Their eyes locked onto Kale first. Then onto her. Lyra's stomach dropped. She had been looked at before. Judged. Measured. But never like this. This wasn't disdain or pity. This was fear sharpened into hatred. Well, one of them drawled, stepping forward with a cruel smile. His hair was silvered with age, his eyes cold and calculating. So the stories are true. Kale's voice was calm, but it carried like thunder. You have no claim here. Leave? Laughter rippled through the group, bitter and mocking. Leave, another alpha scoffed. You hide in forbidden groves with forbidden women and expect us to bow. Lira felt the words like stones thrown at her back. Forbidden women. The first alpha's gaze dragged over her slowly, deliberately, as if stripping her bare. That's the curse, then. This is what you're protecting. Kale's power spiked. The air thickened, pressure snapping like ice about to break. Choose your next words carefully. Or what? The alpha challenged. You'll kill us all and prove our point. More figures appeared at the grove's edge now, elders from nearby packs, council envoys, guards bearing sigils of law and order. The gathering swelled, voices overlapping, tension coiling tighter with every breath. The grove felt smaller by the second. Lyra's heart pounded so hard she thought it might shatter. The silver flame inside her writhed, reacting violently to the hostility, heat crawling up her spine, down her arms. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms, desperate to keep it contained. Don't burn. Don't let them see. You stand accused of treason, Kale Draven, an elder called out, his voice amplified by magic and authority. You have brought an unvetted anomaly into sacred ground. You have slain a wolf under lawful bond. You have interfered with pack agreements. Kale didn't flinch. Those agreements were built on coercion. Tradition, another elder snapped. You undermine the balance. Lyra's ears rang. She felt like she was drowning in voices, each one a blade aimed at her throat. She is not an anomaly, Kale said. She is a woman. A ripple of derisive laughter followed. A barren woman, someone shouted. A failed womb. The words hit her knees out from under her. She staggered, barely catching herself on the altar. Her vision blurred at the edges as memories crashed over her, her parents' faces, relieved and distant, the healer's voice, the way the word cold had followed her like a sentence. Kale took a step toward the speaker. Enough? But it was already too late. The council elder raised his staff again. Silence. We will speak plainly now. The crowd stilled, anticipation buzzing. We have reviewed the signs, the elder continued. The visions. The unrest. This awakening. His gaze flicked to Lira, sharp and condemning. A barren queen will doom us all. The declaration slammed into the grove, heavy and final. Lyra's breath left her in a broken gasp. Queen. The word felt like mockery. Like cruelty dressed up as ceremony. This one carries power without balance, the elder went on. Fire without life. Flame without legacy. If she stands beside an alpha king, her influence will fracture the packs. War will follow. Blood will drown us. Murmurs of agreement rose, swelling into a roar. Hand her over, the elder said, turning fully to Cale. For the good of all. The ultimatum echoed. Hand her over. Lira felt something inside her go very still. She didn't look at Cale. She couldn't. She stared at the altar instead, at the runes glowing faintly beneath her trembling fingers. The grove hummed anxiously, as if it sensed her spiraling. Cale said nothing. Silence stretched, unbearable. The elder's voice sharpened. Alpha King. Your answer. Still nothing. Lyra's chest burned. The pause, just a pause, felt like betrayal sinking its teeth into her heart. She knew, rationally, that Cale was weighing 1,000 lives against one. She knew leadership demanded calculation. But pain is not rational. The pause felt like confirmation of every fear she'd ever carried. She wasn't worth it. She turned away slowly, unnoticed as the crowd's attention remained fixed on Cale. She heard fragments as she moved. She's dangerous. Prophecy twisted. Better one life than thousands. Her hands shook as she reached into the pocket of her torn dress. The moonstone was smooth and cool against her skin. She had carved it as a child, back when she still believed small, beautiful things could matter. She had carried it with her ever since. A reminder that she existed, even when no one else seemed to see her. She crossed the grove quietly, stepped steady despite the chaos roaring behind her. No one stopped her. No one noticed. Except Cale. He felt it, the sudden absence at his back, the shift in the air. He turned just as she reached the grove's edge. Their eyes met across the distance. Everything else faded. She saw the war in his expression. Rage, fear, resolve, doubt, all of it colliding behind his eyes. She knew, then, that he would fight for her if he chose to. That was exactly why she couldn't let him. She lifted the moonstone, pressed it into the ground at the boundary of the grove, where old magic still breathed. Her fingers lingered on it for a heartbeat. Do not bleed for me. She didn't speak the words aloud. She didn't need to. Cale understood. His body went rigid, power flaring violently around him. Lira, he said, her name a command and a plea all at once. She shook her head. Her chest ached so badly she thought she might break in two, but she forced herself to stand tall. Forced herself to meet his gaze without flinching. I won't be the reason they tear you apart, she said, voice steady despite the pain ripping through her. I won't be your war. You are not a burden, he said fiercely. Do not decide that for me. She smiled sadly. You already have a crown to carry. The crowd had noticed now. Murmurs rippled outward as they realized what was happening. She's running. Let her go. No. Lira turned away before anyone could stop her. The forest swallowed her quickly, branches closing in, fog wrapping around her like a shroud. Each step away from the grove felt heavier than the last, as if the land itself resisted her departure. Behind her, voices rose. Shouting. Orders. The sound of claws striking stone. Cale moved. Power exploded outward as he took a step after her, but the elders reacted just as fast. Barriers flared, ancient magic slamming into place between him and the forest. "Stand down," the elder commanded. "Or you confirm our fears." Cale roared, the sound raw and feral, echoing across the hills. The grove shook, pillars cracking slightly under the force of his rage. Lira stumbled as the sound hit her, tears spilling freely now, as she ran blindly through the trees. "Don't look back. If you look back, you won't be able to keep going." She didn't know where she was going. Only that staying meant becoming a symbol. A weapon. A reason for blood. Branches tore at her skin as she ran, the silver flame inside her thrashing wildly now, responding to her grief and terror. The forest no longer felt like shelter. It felt like exile. Behind her, the world fought back. And she ran straight into the dark, carrying destiny alone. The cold found her first. It crept in through her torn clothes, through the cuts on her skin, through the hollow place in her chest where something vital had been torn loose. Snow began to fall sometime after midnight, soft and relentless, drifting down like pale ash from a dead sky. It clung to her hair, melted against her fever-warm skin, then froze again, as she kept moving. Lira didn't know how long she ran. Time lost meaning once she left the grove behind. There was only breath and pain and the sound of her own heart beating too loud in her ears. The forest thinned as the land rose, trees giving way to rock and wind. Her ankles screamed with every step. Her lungs burned. Still she didn't stop. She couldn't. Stopping meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering Cale's face when she turned away. By the time she stumbled into the mountains, dawn was bleeding weak and colorless across the horizon. Jagged stone rose around her like broken teeth, sharp and unforgiving. The wind howled through narrow passes, carrying snow that stung her eyes and stripped heat from her body. Her strength finally gave out near a shallow cave carved into the mountainside, half hidden behind a curtain of ice. She collapsed just inside, body hitting stone hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. She lay there, gasping, snow swirling in at the mouth of the cave. The silver flame inside her burned hot and wild, the only thing keeping her from slipping into the dark. It pulsed erratically, reacting to her exhaustion and grief, spilling warmth through her veins in uneven waves. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty stone. She didn't know who she was apologizing to. The cave smelled of cold rock and old solitude. Wind moaned through it like a voice that had been crying for a very long time. Lira curled onto her side, drawing her knees up as best she could, arms wrapping around herself. She told herself she was safer alone. She told herself she had done the right thing. The words rang hollow. Sleep dragged her under in short, broken pieces, filled with fire and falling and Cale's voice calling her name from somewhere she could never quite reach. She woke to the sound of footsteps crunching in snow. Her eyes flew open, heart slamming violently against her ribs. Instinct flared. The silver flame surged, responding before thought could catch up. Heat flooded her limbs as she scrambled upright, back pressing against the cave wall. A shadow fell across the entrance. For one terrible heartbeat, she thought the council had found her. That the world had finally closed its jaws around her. Then the scent hit her. Storm. Iron. Pine and smoke. Cale. Her breath caught painfully in her throat. He stood just outside the cave, snow dusting his shoulders, dark hair streaked white where flakes clung and melted. His cloak was gone. His clothes were torn and marked with old blood and fresh ice. His expression was carved from restraint so tight it bordered on breaking. The mountain wind howled around him, but he did not step inside. He did not cross the threshold. "You ran farther than I thought you would," he said. His voice was low, rough, threaded with exhaustion and something far more dangerous beneath it. Lyra's chest hurt. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "They'll come for you." "They already tried," Cale replied. "They won't again." She swallowed. "You defied the council." "Yes. You chose me." The words trembled between them, fragile as frost. Cale's jaw tightened. "I chose not to let them make you a sacrifice." "That's the same thing." He didn't argue. Snow fell harder, thick flakes swirling between them. The cave felt too small, too intimate, filled with everything she had been trying not to feel. "Why did you follow me?" she asked. His gaze never left her. "Because you left." The answer landed with quiet force. "I told you not to bleed for me. And I told you not to decide my battles." She laughed softly, broken and bitter. "You don't understand. I'm not what they think I am, but I'm not what you need either." He took one step closer, stopping just inside the cave, close enough that the cold receded slightly under the heat of his presence. "I know exactly what I need," he said. Her heart stuttered. "You need an heir. A future. Stability. I had those once." The words carried weight. "Grief? History?" She hesitated, then asked quietly, "What happened to her?" Cale's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with memory sharp enough to wound. "My first mate," he said slowly, "was chosen by fate before I ever wore a crown." Lyra's breath softened, instinctively gentle now. "She was strong," he continued. "Fierce. She never feared me, not even when she should have. She believed the world could be bent into something kinder, if you pushed hard enough." His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "She was wrong. But she was beautiful for believing it." Snow whispered against stone. "She carried our child," Cale said. The pack celebrated. The council praised the bond. They called it destiny fulfilled. His hands curled slowly at his sides. The birth went wrong. Lira felt the words like a knife sliding between her ribs. "She labored for 2 days," he went on. "Wouldn't let me leave her side. Wouldn't let the healers use magic that might harm the child." His voice thickened, just slightly. The baby was stillborn. Lyra's vision blurred. And she, his breath left him in a long, controlled exhale. She bled out before sunrise. The cave felt unbearably quiet. "I held them both," Cale said. "And learned how little power means when fate decides to take everything anyway." Something in Lira cracked open. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "So am I," he said. "But I learned something from it." She looked at him, tears streaking down her face. "What?" "That destiny doesn't care who it destroys," Cale replied. "And that fear makes monsters of people long before fire ever does." The silver flame inside her stirred, not violently now, but warm and aching, as if responding to the truth in his voice. "That's why I'm afraid of prophecy," he admitted. "Not because of what it says you'll do, but because of what people will do to make it stop." Her chest tightened painfully. "You think I'll destroy them? I think they'll try to destroy you first." The honesty of it left her raw. She looked away, staring at the cave wall, at the way I trace delicate, cruel patterns along the stone. "I don't want to be powerful," she said. "I don't want to be feared. I just want quiet." Cale stepped closer still, close enough that she could feel his warmth clearly now, cutting through the cold. "I know," he said. She turned back to him, tears spilling freely now, no longer trying to hide them. "If I stay with you, they'll never stop coming. They'll turn every life you protect into a weapon against you." His gaze softened, just a fraction. "I've been at war my entire life, Lira. With rivals. With politics. With ghosts." She laughed weakly through tears. "And now with me." "And now with truth," he corrected. Silence fell again, heavy but different now. Less sharp. More intimate. The silver flame hummed quietly beneath her skin, steady and warm, as if soothed by his presence. She became acutely aware of the space between them. Of how close he was. Of how her body leaned toward him without permission. Their breaths mixed in the cold air. She could feel the pull now, undeniable and frightening. Not just attraction, but recognition. The same strange sense she had felt the first time she saw him in the storm, now deeper, heavier, threaded through her bones. She stepped closer before she could stop herself. Cale's breath caught. His hand lifted, hovering just short of her cheek, as if asking a question he already feared the answer to. Her heart pounded. This would change everything. She tilted her head up slightly, lips parting on an unsteady breath. His gaze dropped to her mouth. The space between them shrank to nothing but tension and heat and the quiet hum of power. The silver flame surged, gentle but insistent. Her skin felt alive. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just this, his warmth, his breath, the promise of something fierce and fragile all at once. Then fear slammed back into her. She pulled away sharply, breath-breaking. "I can't." Cale froze, hand dropping slowly to his side. "If I love you," she said, voice shaking but resolute, "I might destroy you." The words hung between them, raw and terrible. Cale studied her face, really studied it, the fear, the longing, the strength she didn't believe she had. Then he stepped forward again. This time, he didn't stop. He cupped her face gently, thumb brushing away a tear with reverent care. His touch was warm, grounding, utterly real. "Then we burn together," he said. The promise settled deep in her chest, not loud, not dramatic, but unbreakable. The silver flame flared softly, responding not with chaos, but with harmony. Outside, snow continued to fall, burying the world in white. Inside the mountain cave, two broken souls stood close enough to change each other forever, knowing the storm had only just begun, and choosing, for this one quiet moment, not to run. The mountain did not warn them. It did not tremble or cry out. It simply went still, as if holding its breath. Lira felt it first. The silver flame inside her, quiet, warm, almost gentle since Cale's promise, shuddered hard, like an animal sensing a snare. Her breath caught. Her spine stiffened. The cave felt suddenly too open, too exposed, the air thinning with a pressure that had nothing to do with altitude. Cale felt it a heartbeat later. His body went rigid, every line of him snapping into redness. He stepped away from her, placing himself between her and the cave mouth without a word, power rising off him in a controlled surge that made the stone hum faintly. "Someone's coming," he said. Lyra's stomach twisted. "Council?" Cale's jaw tightened. "No." The word landed heavy. Snow outside the cave began to swirl unnaturally, drawn into a tightening spiral. Footsteps followed, not rushing, not cautious. Familiar. Too familiar. Her heart stuttered painfully in her chest. She knew that rhythm. She knew that scent. "No," she whispered, the word tearing out of her before she could stop it. Two figures emerged through the falling snow, cloaks drawn tight against the wind. They stopped just outside the cave, silhouettes framed by white and grey. Her parents. Her mother stepped forward first, her hood falling back to reveal the same careful braids Lira remembered from childhood. The same calm expression. The same eyes that had looked at her that morning and decided she was expendable. Her father stood beside her, shoulders squared, jaw set in the way he wore when he wanted to look resolute instead of ashamed. Lira felt something inside her go cold. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Her mother smiled faintly. "You always were dramatic, Lira." The words cut deeper than any blade. Cale's power flared sharply. "You will leave," he said, voice dangerous and precise. "Now?" Her father's gaze flicked to Cale, then back to her. "You see," he said to her mother. "I told you he'd be with her." "With her?" her mother echoed softly. "Just like the signs said." Lyra's hands curled into fists. "What signs?" Her parents exchanged a look, a silent conversation she knew too well. Her mother spoke. "We always knew you were different." The world tilted. "You told me I was broken," Lira said, voice rising despite herself. "You told me my womb was cold." Her mother's eyes didn't waver. "It was safer that way." Cale took a step forward, fury barely contained. "You sold your daughter." "We protected our pack," her father snapped. "We protected the balance." "By selling me," Lira said, the truth slicing through her chest with each word. "By handing me to a man who saw me as livestock." Her mother sighed, as if tired. "You were never meant to live a normal life, Lira. The fire would have exposed you eventually." "Fire?" The silver flame surged violently, reacting to the word, heat roaring through her veins. "You knew," Lira whispered. "You knew what I was." Her mother nodded once. "The elders came to us when you were born. They told us what your blood carried. What you might become." Her father's voice was harder. "They said you would bring ruin if you were allowed to bond. If you were allowed to conceive." The cave felt like it was closing in. "So you lied," Lira said. "You let me believe I was worthless." "It kept you alive," her mother said softly. "Until we could decide what to do with you." The last thread inside Lira snapped. Before she could speak again, the mountain answered for her. The air cracked. Magic surged violently through the cave as figures appeared in flashes of light and shadow, elders, guards, council members, rival alphas. They poured in from every direction, sealing the cave entrance with shimmering barriers that hummed with suppressive force. The mountain had become a cage. Kale roared, a sound raw and feral, his body already shifting as claws tore free, eyes blazing gold. You planned this. The eldest council member stepped forward, staff glowing with runic light. We adapted, he said calmly. The prophecy has evolved. Lira laughed, the sound sharp and broken. Prophecies don't evolve. Cowards do. The elder's gaze pinned her. We were wrong before. We believed your power would awaken after conception. We believed you would birth destruction. He raised his staff. We were mistaken. The words dropped like stones. She must die before she conceives. Silence slammed down. Lyra's breath left her in a broken gasp. Die. Before she conceives. The meaning burned into her bones. Kale's head snapped toward the elder. You will not touch her. You don't get to decide that anymore, the elder replied. You forfeited that right when you defied us. Chains erupted from the ground, forged of magic and ancient iron, snapping around Lyra's wrists, her ankles, her waist. She cried out as they tightened, suppressive runes biting into her skin, forcing the silver flame to recoil painfully inward. Kale lunged. Barriers flared, throwing him back with brutal force. He hit the stone wall hard enough to crack it, blood splattering across the ice. Kale! Lira screamed. He pushed himself up instantly, shaking off the impact, eyes locked on her. Hold on, he shouted. I will get to you. Guards closed in, weapons drawn, magic crackling. The council formed a circle around her, their presence oppressive and absolute. This is a lawful trial, the elder announced. For the survival of all packs. Lyra's knees trembled as the chains pulled her upright, suspending her painfully. The runes burned. Her skin felt like it was being flayed from the inside. She searched Kale's face desperately. He fought. Gods, he fought. He tore through barriers, through guards, through magic that should have stopped him, his power ripping through the cave like a storm-given flesh. But there were too many. Always too many. Enough, the elder commanded. Alpha King, stand down. Kale froze. Just for a breath. Just one. In that breath, Lira saw it. The calculation. The crown. The weight of 1,000 lives pressing down on one man's shoulders. He hesitated. And that hesitation shattered her. The pain in her chest was immediate and devastating, eclipsing even the chains. Something broke open inside her, raw and screaming. So this is where it ends, she thought distantly. Not with love. Not with choice. But with fear winning again. Her mother watched, eyes glistening. It's better this way, she said softly. You were never meant to be a woman. You were meant to be a warning. Lyra's head dropped forward. Then she laughed. Low. Trembling. Unhinged. No, she said. The silver flame surged violently, no longer contained by fear or restraint. It poured out of her spine in a blinding eruption of light, silver fire ripping through the chains like paper. The runes screamed as they melted, dripping molten metal onto the stone. The cave shook. Guards cried out, stumbling back as heat and power slammed into them. The council's barrier cracked, fractures racing across it like lightning. Lira lifted her head. Her eyes were no longer brown. They burned silver. Fur tore through her skin along her arms and shoulders, not fully formed, not controlled, just enough. Claws extended, tearing free. Her spine arched violently as power reshaped her body mid-scream. Her first true partial shift. The silver flame roared, alive and furious, no longer hiding. "I am not your sacrifice," she snarled, her voice layered with something ancient and vast. "And I am done being afraid." Cale stared at her, awe and horror colliding in his eyes. The council staggered back, faces pale with terror. Her parents fell to their knees. And in the heart of the mountain, surrounded by lies and chains and rewritten fate, Lira finally stopped running. The mask had dropped. And the world would burn for it. Fire did not calm her. It clarified her. The silver flame that had exploded from her spine did not fade when the cave cracked and the council scattered in terror. It did not dim when guards fled or when her parents collapsed to the stone, sobbing and shielding their faces. It settled instead, coiling tight, purposeful, obedient at last. Lira stood in the wreckage of chains and melted iron, breath steady, claws flexing, as if they had always belonged to her. Cale moved first. He crossed the broken stone in 3 strides, skidding to a halt before her, hands lifted, not to restrain, not to command, but to show he would not flinch. His eyes searched her face with a mix of awe and fear he did not try to hide. "Lira," he said, voice rough. "Can you hear me?" She could hear everything. The mountain's heart beat beneath her feet. The snow screamed against the rock outside. The council's panic rang like glass. And beneath it all, a deeper sound, ancient, patient, waking. She looked at Cale and saw him clearly, without the haze of fear that had clouded her vision for so long. Saw the man beneath the crown. The grief etched into his bones. The restraint that had kept him standing when fury begged him to burn. "I hear you," she said. Her voice carried. It did not echo. The cave itself listened. The elders regrouped, desperation hardening their fear into resolve. Barriers flared again, thicker, layered with older magic. The eldest raised his staff, voice shaking but firm. "This ends now," he declared. "Bind her. Kill her if you must." The words bounced off her like pebbles. Lira took 1 step forward. The mountain answered. Stone groaned. Cracks spidered outward, racing across walls and floor. The suppressive runes carved into the cave flared and died, unable to withstand the pressure of her presence. The silver flame rose higher, wrapping her in a corona of light that hurt to look at. Cale felt it then, not just power, but intent. She wasn't lashing out. She was choosing. "Stop," he shouted, not at her, but at the council. "You're provoking what you don't understand." The elder sneered, fear curdling into cruelty. "We understand enough. She is a calamity." Lira smiled. It wasn't kind. "Then watch," she said, "how a calamity chooses mercy." She lifted her hands. The chains at her feet dissolved fully, iron running like tears across the stone before vanishing into ash. The barriers collapsed inward with a sound like a held breath finally released. Wind surged through the cave, flinging snow and debris into a roaring spiral. The council scattered. Lira didn't chase them. She stepped past Kale and walked into the storm. The coronation ritual was already underway when she returned. They had chosen the old plateau, the one ringed by ruins that predated the Pax, the place where Alpha Kings were crowned under open sky. Torches burned in wide arcs. Banners snapped in the rising wind. The gathered Pax formed a living sea of bodies and breath and expectation. Kale was meant to stand at the center. Instead, the council had moved forward without him. Fear had accelerated them. They needed the crown settled, the power anchored somewhere safe, somewhere controllable. A new Alpha King, pliant, approved, unquestioning. They had not expected her. The first sign was the sky. Clouds tore apart, as if ripped by invisible hands. A fissure of light split the heavens, silver white and blinding, thunder detonating in its wake. The torches guttered, flames bending toward the source as if bowing. Silence fell in a wave. Every head turned. Lira walked onto the plateau through the falling ash and snow, her torn dress replaced by nothing but light and will. The silver flame wrapped her, shaping itself as she moved, armor and mantle, not consuming, but revealing. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "She's dead," someone whispered. "She was executed." "No," another breathed. "She's..." She reached the center of the circle and stopped. The wind screamed. The ruins stirred. Stones older than memory hummed and lifted, aligning themselves around her in a slow, reverent arc. Runes long eroded flared back to life, glowing with the same silver fire that pulsed beneath her skin. Kale arrived at the edge of the plateau, blooded and breathless, eyes locked on her with naked disbelief. "Lira," he said again, softer now. "What are you doing?" She turned. When their eyes met, the world narrowed to the space between them. The pull snapped tight, recognition without doubt, bond without chains. "I'm finishing it," she said. "The part where I stop being decided for." The council shouted orders. Guards surged forward. The sky split wider. A voice rolled down from the fracture above, many voices led into one, old as bone and bright as dawn. "Enough!" The word struck the plateau like a hammer. Every wolf dropped to one knee. Every human staggered, pressed down by the weight of command that did not belong to any living alpha. Lira lifted her chin. The voices spoke again, through her. Not possession. Permission. "We remember you, child of the flame womb." Her chest burned, not painfully, but fiercely, as if 1,000 hands steadied her spine. "We remember the lie. We remember the fear." Her mouth moved with the words, voice ringing clear and unstoppable. "You called me barren," she said. "You called me broken. You called me a curse, because it was easier than facing what you did not control." She took a step forward. The air cracked with heat. "I was never barren," she said. "I was waiting." The declaration tore through the plateau like lightning. Power surged, not outward, but inward, collapsing into her core. Her body arched as the silver flame condensed, reshaping her bones with a sound like distant thunder. She cried out, not in pain, but in release. Then she shifted. Not the fractured, desperate change of before. The full truth. Fur erupted across her skin in a smooth, unstoppable wave, silver, luminous, each hair threaded with light. Her limbs lengthened and strengthened, joints realigning with brutal grace. Her spine flowed into its true shape, tail lashing once as balance settled. Claws extended, black and gleaming. Her muzzle formed, breath steaming in the cold air. When she lifted her head, her eyes burned like molten moonlight. A silver-furred wolf stood at the heart of the ruins, massive and radiant, the ground bowing beneath her weight. The pack stared. Some wept. Others trembled. Ancient stones sank into place around her, locking the circle, sealing the moment. The voices spoke one last time. She chooses. The wind fell. Silence returned, not empty, but reverent. Lira shifted back slowly, deliberately, light folding into her until she stood once more as a woman, changed, but whole. The silver flame receded to a steady glow beneath her skin. She looked to the council. You do not get to rewrite prophecy to excuse murder, she said. You do not get to decide who lives so you can sleep at night. The elders staggered forward, pale and shaking. You'll destroy us. No, Lira replied. Your fear will. She turned to the packs. I won't rule you by terror, she said. I won't demand obedience. Kneel if you choose. Stand if you must. But hear this, there will be no more children sold to clear debts. No more bodies traded to soothe cowardice. No more lies dressed as tradition. The plateau trembled as the ruins answered her oath. One by one, wolves lowered their heads. Not compelled. Convinced. Kale stepped forward. He removed his crown. The metal rang softly as he set it on the stone between them. Then he bowed. Not to a weapon. Not to a prophecy. To her. The sight shattered what remained of the council's resistance. Guards dropped their weapons. Elders fell back, stripped of authority they had abused for too long. Lira met Kale's gaze. The bond flared, warm, fierce, unbreakable. Stand with me, she said quietly. Not behind. Not above. He rose, eyes bright with unshed tears and fire. Always. The sky began to close, the fracture knitting itself shut as the storm receded. Snow fell gently now, settling like a benediction. But not everything slept. Beyond the ruins, beyond the veil where old magic thinned, something watched. A presence colder than fear and older than prophecy stirred, attention fixed on the silver flame that had finally claimed its shape. The wind carried a whisper only the stones heard. So the waiting ends. Lira felt it, a shiver along her spine, a shadow at the edge of awareness. She did not look away. She bared her teeth and smiled. Let it come. As the silver light of her shift fades, the grove settles in uneasy silence. Smoke curls from the ruins, mingling with the scent of wet pine and molten stone. Kale kneels beside her, his hands trembling slightly, the heat of his concern brushing against the raw, electric aura still clinging to her skin. She looks at him, not with fear, not with doubt, but with the fire of someone reborn, unshakable. Yet, beneath that triumph, something moves in the shadows. A presence unseen, heavy, ancient, observing. Her instincts prick. a whisper curling at the edge of her mind, "Not all threats are gone." From the darkness beyond the grove, a voice, soft, guttural, yet carrying authority, drifts on the wind. She is not the only one. The reckoning has only begun. The ground trembles subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. Then a low rumble echoes through the roots and stones, a heartbeat of the earth itself. Kale stiffens, eyes narrowing into molten gold, sensing the shift, the danger. Lira's silver fur bristles, her power, still humming like live wire beneath her skin, reacts to the unseen presence. She turns her gaze toward the horizon, where the night swallows the moonlight. A chill brushes her spine, a warning. Yet inside her, the fire burns brighter. She steps forward, claws sinking into the earth, fur bristling, eyes narrowing with resolve. "Let them come," she whispers, voice steady, fearless. "They will learn what it means to stand against the flame." Kale rises, matching her stance, and for the first time, there is no hesitation, no shadow of doubt. The air between them thrums with unspoken promise and shared power. Together, they are more than fearsome, they are unstoppable. And yet, the distant shadows stir, and the wind carries a new threat, one that even they may not fully comprehend. The camera of the mind pulls back, showing the grove illuminated by silver fire, two figures standing defiantly, as the rumble grows, hinting at the battles yet to come. A final whisper lingers across the scene, low and haunting. The true Alpha hasn't risen, yet. The night stretches, pregnant with anticipation, leaving the heart racing, the mind questioning, and the soul craving what comes next. Ash swirls like ghostly silk across the scorched grove, carried by a cold wind that smells of rain, iron, and fire. Every step Lira takes stirs the lingering embers of the fallen ritual stones, and yet her feet are steady, unshakable, even as the earth beneath her pulses like a living thing, warning her that the night is far from over. Kale stands beside her, his shadow stretching long and protective, eyes glinting like molten gold as they sweep over the horizon. The grove is silent now, but it is a quiet that hums with expectation, a calm before storms yet to arrive. Lira feels it in her bones. The power she has claimed is immense, yes, but the world does not yield so easily. She has risen, but there are forces that will challenge her, that will not bow to fire or steel. From the darkness beyond the edge of the grove, a low, guttural whisper drifts on the wind. It curls around her like smoke, chilling and intimate at the same time. She was never meant to rule alone. The words strike her chest like a blade, heavy with threat and promise. Her silver flame flickers, responding instinctively to the hidden presence, bristling with anticipation. Every hair on her neck rises. She knows this voice, the shadow of a power older, darker, and more patient than any she has faced before. It does not demand obedience, it offers a warning. Kale's hand brushes hers, grounding her, tethering her to the present even as the world seems to tilt beneath them. He does not speak. Words would only shatter the fragile quiet. His eyes, molten and piercing, communicate everything, vigilance, readiness, a promise that he will stand by her through whatever comes. The wind rises. Leaves whip into spirals, carrying ash and echoes of the past. Lira inhales deeply, tasting smoke and rain, and she feels the fire inside her surge, silver-hot, raw, unstoppable. Yet fear licks at the edges of that fire. This is bigger than her. This is bigger than Kale. And somehow, she senses it has always been waiting for her. The ground trembles again, sharper this time, as if the earth itself is bracing for a revelation. Shadows lengthen unnaturally, stretching toward her, bending in ways that defy logic. Her claws sink into the dirt, silver sparks licking her skin, and she whispers to herself, more a vow than a prayer. They will not take what I am, not without a fight. From the far reaches of the grove, a darker presence watches, its form indistinct, shrouded in shadow, but the weight of its gaze presses on her mind. Lira tilts her head, muscles coiled, every sense flaring. Her heartbeat pounds like war drums, every nerve screams in anticipation. This is the first moment she understands the magnitude of her destiny. She is not just a queen reclaimed, she is a force that has awakened something ancient and waiting. Kale steps forward, body tense, ready. The silence between them vibrates with unspoken understanding, the calm is deceptive. The storm is coming, and it will test every fragment of their strength, every ounce of trust and fire they hold. Yet in this moment, Lira feels something she has not felt in her entire life, control, fierce and intoxicating, even as the shadow presses ever closer. She lets her silver flame hum through her veins, a warmth and power that promises both protection and destruction. Her eyes, molten and burning, scan the darkness, and for the first time, she does not shrink from the threat. Instead, she embraces it, letting it sharpen her focus, harden her resolve. The whispering shadow does not retreat, it waits, patient, almost respectful, as if it recognizes the spark of destiny blazing within her. Then the whisper comes again, closer, softer, yet carrying the weight of inevitability. You are not alone, but you are not safe. A shiver runs down Lyra's spine, and she exhales slowly, deliberately, letting the ash and night wrap around her. She glances at Kale. His jaw is tight, eyes fixed, ready. They are not invincible, not yet, but together, they are more than any shadow could reckon. Together, they are fire and steel, storm and silver flame. The wind tears through the grove once more, louder now, carrying with it the promise of what is to come, battles that will scorch the land, choices that will fracture hearts, and powers that have slept for centuries, stirring awake. Lira tightens her fingers around Kale's, feeling the pulse of his strength, the tether of his unwavering presence, and knows with absolute clarity, they will face it all. And when they do, they will not bow. Finally, the camera of imagination pulls back, showing the grove bathed in ghostly silver light, two figures standing defiantly amid the ruins and swirling ash. The shadows beyond flicker, restless, waiting, watching, testing. Lira steps forward, fur glinting, eyes molten, flame coiling like liquid silver around her spirit. Her voice rises low, commanding, yet carrying a quiet, unshakable fire. They will learn what it means to challenge the flame. The last echo drifts across the grove, merging with the wind, the trees, the trembling earth. She was never meant to rule alone. Then darkness falls. Silence, pregnant with inevitability, stretches across the land. And the story is only beginning.